The soft music and bursts of laughter at the wedding seemed to vanish into silence for me. Noah, my 7-year-old grandson, clutched my hand tightly, a grip filled with fear. "Grandpa, we have to leave, right now." His voice trembled, choked with panic. "What's wrong, son?" I asked, a wave of dread rising in my chest. Noah shook his head violently, his lips pressed into a tight line. You haven't looked under the table yet, have you?" In that moment, all the sounds around me seemed to fade away. Slowly, I bent down and lifted the heavy tablecloth. Beneath the shadows, what I saw wasn't a toy or anything harmless. It was a raw, undeniable truth, a deep fracture that shattered the false peace and happiness of that day, turning joy into a chilling nightmare. The ballroom was glowing with chandeliers that cast golden light across the polished wooden floors. Guests were laughing, glasses clinking, and somewhere in the corner, a jazz quartet played a cheerful tune. It was the kind of evening that was supposed to make a father proud. My son Daniel looked sharp in his navy suit, smiling that forced smile of his, while moving from table to table, thanking relatives, shaking hands, making small talk. His new bride, Claire, posed for photographs, her pearl-white dress glittering under the lights as though she were the very center of the universe. From the outside, everything was flawless, but from where I sat, beside my grandson Noah, nothing felt right. I adjusted Noah's bow tie, smoothing the fabric like I used to do for Daniel when he was small. My grandson had his toy truck on the tablecloth, pushing it back and forth in quiet concentration, blocking out the noise of grown-ups. That boy was my heart, the only piece of innocence left in a family that had endured far too much. Every time I looked at him, I saw echoes of his late mother, Emily, her kindness, her laughter, the way she could fill a room without even trying. Losing her had scarred all of us, but Noah most of all. The waiters moved between tables with trays of wine glasses and plates of appetizers, every step rehearsed, every movement perfect. I should have been at ease, should have been celebrating my son's second chance at happiness. But even as I forced myself to smile at familiar faces, a chill clung to me like a shadow I couldn't shake. When I first met Claire, I wanted to believe she could help Daniel heal. God knows, the man needed warmth after losing Emily. For months, I told myself to be open, to welcome her. But tonight, under those glowing lights, I couldn't ignore the way my chest tightened every time her laughter rang across the hall. It was too sharp, too polished, like a blade pretending to be a song. At our table, an older couple leaned toward me with gentle smiles. "How old is he now, Michael?" the woman asked, nodding toward Noah. "Just turned 7, I answered softly. "Time flies." They chuckled and returned to their cake. I turned as well, cutting a small slice for Noah. He looked up at me with gratitude flashing in his eyes, then lowered his head again and quietly kept rolling his truck as if that was the only safe world he knew. But then his little hands froze. His toy stopped. Slowly, he looked at me with an intensity that didn't belong to a child. Something cold gripped my spine. "Grandpa," he whispered, clutching my hand, "I want to leave right now." My heart kicked in my chest. "What's wrong, son? Tell me." His lips quivered. His voice was so faint, I had to bend closer. "You didn't look under the table, did you?" Those words sliced through me like glass. My breath caught. I forced myself to remain calm, though the panic in Noah's eyes made that nearly impossible. With shaking fingers, I lifted the edge of the tablecloth. Beneath, the dim candlelight reached just far enough for me to see a folded piece of paper lying near Noah's chair. I picked it up. The room around me blurred, the music, the laughter, the glow all faded into silence. My hand trembled as I opened the note. Scribbled words stared back at me. "Table 8. Add shrimp to the child serving." Cebu. My veins turned to ice. My grandson Noah was deathly allergic to shrimp. Everyone in the family knew this. A single bite could close his throat, could steal his breath, could take him from me in minutes. Whoever wrote this had written a death sentence. I gripped Noah's hand tight, his fingers cold as stone. "It's all right, son," I whispered. though my own voice cracked. I rose to my feet so suddenly that the couple next to us paused, startled. I didn't care. I pulled Noah against me, shielding him, as though my arms alone could keep the world's cruelty away. The laughter continued, the band played, but for me, time had shattered. The note was proof that someone at this wedding, someone close, wanted my grandson gone. And as I looked across the ballroom, my eyes fell on Claire. She was radiant, champagne flute in hand, laughing at something a guest said. That laugh again, sharp, rehearsed, flawless. And for the first time, I let the unease in my chest settle into something darker. Suspicion. But the mind is cruel. It pulled me backward into memories I thought I had buried. I saw Emily again, my daughter-in-law, gone too soon. She was as warm as morning light, as steady as the earth beneath my feet. I remembered the first time she cooked for us in that little house in the suburbs. "Michael, taste this chili. Tell me if it's too spicy," she said, smiling, her eyes full of love for my son and their baby boy. I remembered the night Noah burned with fever as a toddler. Emily's tears fell onto his forehead as she whispered, "I'm so scared." I had sat beside her all night, pressing cool cloths to his skin, whispering that he would be all right, even though fear weighed heavy in me too. By dawn, his fever broke, and Emily smiled at me with eyes red from crying. "Thank you, Dad," she had whispered, squeezing my hand. I had believed then that this family would last forever. But forever ended in a phone call. A police officer's voice telling me Emily's car had been hit by a truck that lost control. Just like that, she was gone. I dropped a dish to the kitchen floor when I heard the shards scattering like my heart. Her funeral was drowned in rain. Noah was 4 then, confused, asking where his mother was. Daniel, my son, collapsed at the coffin, unable to speak. And me? I stood there hollow, watching our family fracture beyond repair. After that, Daniel buried himself in work, leaving Noah in silence. The boy grew withdrawn, speaking less, his eyes always searching for a mother who would never come back. I did what I could. I was there for him every night, telling stories of Emily, of her songs, her laughter, the way she cut his fruit into perfect little cubes, anything to keep her memory alive for him. But then Daniel brought Claire home. She was younger, her smile painted on, her words honeyed. She complimented my house, laughed too much, glanced too long at photos of Emily on the wall. I tried to welcome her, to give her a chance, but Noah never smiled when she was around. His little shoulders tensed, his eyes lowered, as though even at that age he sensed something hidden. And now, sitting in this glittering ballroom, holding a note that ordered shrimp to be slipped into my grandson's meal, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, I had ignored the signs too long. I clenched the paper in my fist. My son's wedding had become a battlefield, and my grandson's life was the prize. This was no accident. This was intent. And I swore to myself, as I held Noah close, that whoever dared try to harm him would face me before they ever touched that boy. I didn't move right away. For a moment, I sat frozen at table 8, Noah's little hand wrapped tightly in mine, the crumpled note still burning my palm. My mind was a storm of disbelief and fury. Who could be so cruel? Who would plot such a thing against a child, my grandchild, on this day of all days? Around me, the wedding celebration carried on like nothing had changed. Glasses chimed. The band's trumpets soared into a jazzy refrain. Guests were laughing at jokes I couldn't hear, their faces blurred like masks painted onto a stage. The world kept moving forward, but for me, time had cracked open. I forced myself to breathe, to steady my voice for Noah's sake. "It's okay, son," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was reassuring him or myself. His wide eyes stared up at me, searching for safety, searching for truth. I squeezed his hand tighter, silently promising him that as long as I was alive, no harm would come to him. "Grandpa," Noah whispered again, so faint I had to lean down. It was her. "I know it." My heart thudded. "Who, son? Tell me." He dropped his gaze to his lap, shoulders trembling. "Claire," he breathed almost inaudible, as though even saying her name might bring danger closer. For a second, I thought my knees would give out. My grandson's words confirmed what my heart had already begun to suspect. Claire, the woman in the white dress, the woman who had charmed my son into giving her his name, the woman smiling for cameras just across the room, wasn't celebrating a marriage. She was weaving a trap. But why? Why would anyone want to hurt a 7-year-old boy? I pressed the thought down. Answers could come later. Right now, Noah's safety was all that mattered. I leaned toward my adopted daughter Sarah, who sat quietly on the other side of Noah. She had always been steady, dependable, a light in our darkest years. She noticed the panic in my eyes even before I spoke. "Keep him close," I whispered sharply. "Don't let him eat or drink anything. Not a single bite." Her face drained of color, but she nodded, pulling Noah into her arms protectively. The boy buried his face against her shoulder, clutching his toy truck in one hand, as if that little piece of plastic could shield him from the world. I rose from my chair, gripping the cursed note, and walked toward the bar where a cluster of waiters gathered. My footsteps were heavy, every stride fueled by anger and fear. "Excuse me," I said firmly, slamming the paper down on the counter in front of one young waiter. I recognized the same one who had delivered our appetizers. His name tag read David. "Who gave you this?" He blinked at the paper, and I saw the color drain from his face. "Oh God," he stammered, shaking his head. That was mine." My chest tightened. "Yours?" "No, not the words. The note. A lady gave it to me. I was told to pass it to the kitchen." His hands trembled as he backed away. "I didn't read it, sir. I swear I didn't know." The other waiters exchanged uneasy glances, their smiles gone. I leaned closer to David, my voice sharp with fury. "Do you understand what this says? My grandson is severely allergic to shrimp. A single bite could kill him." David's eyes widened in horror. "Sir, I had no idea. Please believe me, I just did what I was told. I never wanted—" "Who told you?" I interrupted, my voice rising enough that nearby guests began to glance over. "Who handed you this note?" He shook his head helplessly. I don't know her name. She was one of the guests. She said it was important." I slammed my fist against the bar, glasses rattling. "Important? You nearly delivered a death sentence to a child." David flinched, his hands raised. "Please, sir, I didn't mean—" "Then remember her face." I cut in, my voice cold as steel. "Think hard. Because if my grandson had taken one bite, you'd be explaining this to the police." The boy nodded frantically, sweat glistening on his brow. "I'll remember, I promise." I left him there trembling and turned back toward the ballroom, my pulse pounding. The master of ceremonies was stepping to the microphone, cheerfully announcing that the main course would soon be served. His voice sounded grotesque, like a carnival barker leading lambs to slaughter. I quickened my steps, rushing back to table 8. Sarah still had Noah in her arms, her eyes locked on me, wide with fear. I showed her the note again, whispering through clenched teeth, "It's exactly what we feared." She looked down at Noah, hugging him tighter. "What do we do?" I glanced at my son Daniel across the room. He was laughing with an old college friend, glass raised high. He had no idea. My heart ached at the sight, my boy, finally smiling again after years of grief, blind to the viper he'd just married. I wanted to protect him from the truth, but more than that, I had to protect Noah. As waiters began moving through the room with steaming plates, I stood abruptly, raising my hand. My voice, sharpened by fury, cut through the chatter like a blade. "One moment, please," I called, my tone echoing off the walls. "Before we eat, there's something that must be addressed." The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Daniel froze, confusion washing over his face. Claire, at the center of it all, tilted her head with a puzzled smile, though I saw the flicker of tension in her jaw. I held the note high for all to see. "Someone in this room gave instructions to add shrimp to a child's meal. My grandson's meal. That child is deathly allergic. One bite could have killed him." A wave of gasps rolled across the ballroom. Guests exchanged looks, whispers rising like rustling leaves in a storm. Daniel hurried toward me, his smile gone. "Dad, what's going on?" I shoved the note into his hands. "Read it." He scanned the words, and I watched the blood drain from his face. His hands trembled as he looked from the paper to me, then down at Noah. "What does this mean?" Before I could answer, Claire glided forward, her gown sweeping the floor. Her face was composed, her smile practiced. "This has to be some mistake," she said softly, though her voice carried across the hall. "A terrible joke. Who would do such a thing?" I locked eyes with her, my fury burning. "That's what I intend to find out." Her smile faltered, just slightly, enough for me to see the mask slip. Then, from beside me, Sarah's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She stood, her arms still around Noah, her eyes blazing. "Stop pretending, Claire. We know it was you." And the words hit the room like a thunderclap. Claire's eyes widened, her perfect mask cracking as every head turned toward her. She let out a brittle laugh, but I saw her hands tremble as she raised her glass again. "What a ridiculous accusation," she scoffed. "She's jealous, that's all. Jealous of me marrying Daniel." Sarah took a step forward, her voice cold. "Jealousy doesn't write notes that could kill a child." A hush fell over the guests, tension thick in the air. Daniel's gaze darted between the women, confusion and dread etched on his face. "Claire, please tell me this isn't true." For a heartbeat, Claire said nothing. Then, with a practiced sigh, she pressed a hand to her chest. "My love, of course it's not true. This is nothing but an attempt to ruin our wedding." But I had seen enough. Her mask might fool strangers, but not me, not the man who had lost a daughter-in-law to fate and refused to lose a grandson to malice. I slammed my fist against the table, glasses rattling. "Enough lies. This note is proof, and if you deny it, we can have the security cameras checked." At that, Claire's smile faltered completely. The room seemed to hold its breath, and for the first time that night, I knew the truth was about to surface. The air in the ballroom turned heavy, as though someone had thrown a blanket over the entire room. All the laughter and chatter died at once. The only sound left was the trembling of crystal glasses against porcelain plates, faint and nervous. My heart thundered in my chest, yet my voice carried steady and sharp. Claire's painted smile lingered, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted across the room, searching, calculating, hunting for an escape. She laughed a sound, far too brittle, too rehearsed, and placed a manicured hand delicately against her chest. "Michael, please," she said, her voice honeyed. "Surely you don't believe this nonsense. This has to be a cruel joke. Someone is trying to ruin our night." "Ruin?" I shot back, my voice cutting through the silence. "The only thing ruined here is my faith that this family is safe. That boy you see trembling in Sarah's arms, he is my grandson, and someone wanted him poisoned. Do you call that a joke?" Gasps rippled through the room. I could see faces of relatives, old aunts, distant cousins, Daniel's co-workers, each one frozen, watching this twisted scene unfold like a courtroom drama. Daniel stepped forward, his face pale as the tablecloths. His hand trembled as he held the note aloft. "Claire, do you know anything about this?" She tilted her head, forcing a soft laugh, as if the very question wounded her. "Daniel, love, of course not. I would never hurt Noah. How could you even think such a thing?" But her voice cracked at the edges, and I saw Daniel catch it too. He stood there, torn, his eyes shifting between me, Sarah, and Claire. My son looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, realizing for the first time that the ground beneath him was crumbling. Sarah's voice rang clear, icy as steel. "Stop pretending. I saw how you look at Noah when no one's watching. Cold, resentful. You never wanted him in your life, Claire, and now you tried to erase him." A murmur of shock swept the room. Claire's cheeks flushed red, whether from rage or fear I couldn't tell. She turned sharply toward Sarah, her voice dripping venom. "You dare accuse me? You jealous little orphan. You've always hated me because Daniel chose me and not you." The insult sliced through the air. Sarah flinched, but did not step back. her arms wrapped even tighter around Noah, as though shielding him with her entire being. Her voice wavered only for a moment before she steadied it. Jealous? I would trade everything I have just to keep that boy safe. You, on the other hand, would throw him into the fire just to stand in this spotlight. Claire let out a shrill laugh, but this time no one joined her. The guests weren't smiling anymore. They were whispering among themselves, glancing her way with eyes that cut sharper than knives. I took a step forward, every muscle in my body taut. You can spin your lies all you want, Claire, but the truth is here in black and white. I tapped the note still clutched in Daniel's hand. Shrimp for a boy with an allergy so severe it could kill him. That's not coincidence, that's murder. Her mask slipped further. I saw her nostrils flare, her jaw clench, her fingers twitch. And then, from across the room, a voice broke through the tension. "Stop it!" a girl cried, her voice shaking. All heads turned. It was Gloria, Claire's younger sister, barely 18, her delicate frame trembling as though the very weight of her words threatened to crush her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clutched her dress. It wasn't me who wrote it, but Claire. She gave me that paper. She told me to pass it to the waiter. I didn't know what it said. I swear, I didn't. The room erupted with gasps. Claire spun on her sister, her face twisting in fury. "Shut up, Gloria! How dare you, you lying brat!" But Gloria stood her ground, sobbing, her words spilling like broken glass. "I'm not lying. I did what you asked. You said it was just for the chef. I didn't know. I didn't know it was to hurt Noah." Claire's mask shattered completely then. Her eyes blazed as she stepped toward Gloria, her voice no longer sweet, no longer careful. It came out sharp, venomous, exposed. "You think anyone here will believe you over me? You've always been weak, pathetic." "Enough," I roared, slamming my hand down on the nearest table. Glasses rattled, and the room fell silent again. My voice was low, but it carried. "I don't care how many excuses you make, Claire. The note exists. The waiter confirms it. And now your own sister has spoken. You're finished." Daniel's face was ghostly white. He staggered back a step, shaking his head. "Claire, please tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't." His voice broke, and I saw the boy inside the man, my son, crushed under the weight of betrayal. Claire reached for him, desperation in her movements, her voice breaking now. "Daniel, you know me. You know I love you. This is all lies. They're trying to ruin us." Daniel's eyes burned with tears. He pulled his hand back before she could touch him. "Do you love me so much you'd kill my son?" he asked hoarsely. The question hung in the air like a dagger. Claire froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Sarah stepped forward then, her voice steady, unwavering. "If you deny it, then let's settle this right now. There are cameras in this hall. Security will show the truth." A collective murmur surged through the guests. Heads nodded. "Yes, check the cameras," someone whispered. "She can't lie her way out of that." Claire's face turned ashen. She tried to smile, but it twisted into something grotesque. Her hands shook as she gripped her gown. You wouldn't do that." "Oh, we will," I said coldly. "And when we do, the truth will bury you." Her shoulders slumped. For the first time all night, Claire had no words, no excuses, just silence. And that silence was louder than any confession. Daniel's knees gave out. He dropped to the floor in front of Noah, his hands trembling as he cupped the boy's cheeks. "I'm sorry, son," he whispered, tears spilling freely now. "I failed you. I let this happen. Forgive me." Noah clung to him, his small arms wrapping around his father's neck, whispering back, "I just wanted Mom." The words stabbed every heart in the room. Guests began standing, some shaking their heads, others muttering angrily. An uncle banged his fist against his table, his voice filled with disgust. Poisoning a child, at a wedding, unforgivable. Two security men approached Claire. Their voices were polite, but firm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." She tried to resist, turning desperately to Daniel one last time. "Please, love, don't let them take me. You know I'd never—" But Daniel's face was stone. He stood, shielding his son behind him. His voice was quiet, ragged. "Go. I don't ever want to see you again." And just like that, Claire was escorted out, her gown dragging against the floor, her once perfect smile gone, replaced by a mask of fury and defeat. The ballroom erupted not in cheers, not in celebration, but in a storm of voices, of anger, of sorrow. Guests left their meals untouched, shaking their heads in disbelief. My son stood broken, my grandson trembling, and I felt both relief and exhaustion. The serpent had been unmasked, but the venom she left behind would take time to fade. As I looked at Noah, still clutching Sarah's hand, I made a silent vow. Never again would I let anyone, family or stranger, threaten the boy I loved more than my own life. That night had begun as a wedding, but it ended as a battlefield, with truth standing over lies and love protecting the innocent. The days after the wedding felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm. The decorations had been taken down, the guests had gone home, but the chaos remained in our hearts. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, relatives, neighbors, even people I barely knew calling to ask if the rumors were true. Some spoke with pity, others with anger, and a few with quiet relief, as if they had suspected Claire's cruelty all along. Each call was another reminder of how close we had come to losing Noah, how fragile safety really was. Daniel, my son, withdrew into himself. The man who had stood beaming in a navy suit only days earlier now carried himself like a ghost. He drove Noah to school in silence, brought him home in silence, moved through the house like a man dragging invisible chains. Whenever his eyes lingered on Noah, guilt spread across his face like a shadow. He couldn't bring himself to say Claire's name, and I didn't either. It was as if erasing her from our lips might erase her from our lives. But trauma doesn't vanish just because the villain leaves. Noah had nightmares. He would jolt awake in the middle of the night, clutching his toy truck, whispering, "Don't let her near me, Grandpa. Don't let her." I would sit beside him, rubbing his back until his small body stilled, whispering, "You're safe. I'm right here. No one will ever hurt you again." My words felt like a prayer, one I wasn't sure I had the strength to fulfill, but I spoke them anyway. What surprised me most was Sarah. She had always been steady, but now she became Noah's anchor. Each morning she packed his lunch with meticulous care, always double-checking labels, always slipping in a little note with a hand-drawn smiley face. "Aunt Sarah, you draw funny," Noah would giggle, holding up the crayon, colored face she had sketched for him. For the first time since Emily's death, I heard his laughter ring through the house. It was fragile, but it was real. Afternoons were spent at the park. Sarah would chase Noah across the grass, hold his hand as he climbed the slide, teach him to fly a kite in the wind. I would sit on the bench watching them, my chest tight with gratitude. Once, when Noah tripped and scraped his knee, Sarah scooped him up before I could move, brushing the dirt from his jeans, whispering, "You're okay, love. I've got you." Her voice had the same tenderness Emily's once carried. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though Noah had two mothers watching over him, one in heaven and one standing right there. But healing was not linear. One night, Noah spiked a fever again. I rushed to his room with damp cloths, just as I had done years earlier with Emily. But when I opened the door, Sarah was already there, sitting beside his bed, pressing a cool rag to his forehead, whispering a story about a sparrow flying through a storm. I leaned against the doorway, watching the scene in silence. Daniel stood a few steps behind me, his eyes fixed on Sarah, his expression tangled with sorrow, gratitude, and something else he couldn't admit. For weeks, we carried on like that, quiet routines, small comforts, fragile laughter. Yet beneath it all, an unspoken truth lingered. Claire's betrayal had cracked something in us, and it would never fully mend. One evening, during dinner, Noah suddenly looked up from his pasta. His voice was soft but certain. "I want Aunt Sarah to be my mommy." The room went silent. Sarah froze, spoon in hand, her cheeks flushing crimson. Daniel's eyes welled with tears, his fork clattering onto the plate. My heart clenched as I reached across the table, placing a hand on his shoulder. "True happiness, son," I said gently, "doesn't come from a dress or a wedding. It comes from a heart that knows how to love." End quote. Daniel swallowed hard, staring at Sarah as though seeing her clearly for the first time. She lowered her head, embarrassed, but a small, radiant smile tugged at her lips. Noah, blissfully unaware of the tension, returned to twirling his pasta, humming softly to himself. The days turned into months. Claire disappeared like smoke, her name no longer whispered in our home. Noah grew lighter, freer, his laughter more frequent. I watched him run in the backyard with Sarah, his red toy truck clutched in one hand, his kite string in the other. The sight filled me with both relief and sorrow, relief that he was safe, sorrow that he had endured so much for such a young age. And then one evening, Daniel came to me. He stood in the living room, his hands trembling, his eyes red but determined. Sarah stood beside him, looking down at the floor, shy but glowing. "Dad," Daniel said, his voice thick. "I know I've made mistakes. I was blind. I let someone into our lives who nearly destroyed us. But I won't make that mistake again. Sarah has been here for us, for Noah, for me. I don't want to lose her." My throat tightened. I looked at Sarah, at the way she bit her lip, her cheeks flushed, her eyes brimming with both fear and hope. She wasn't asking for this. She had simply given love where it was needed. Yet here we were, standing at the threshold of a new chapter. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Son, the only thing I've ever wanted was for you and Noah to be happy. If this is the path to that, then you have my blessing." Sarah finally looked up, her smile radiant despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. Daniel took her hand, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from our home. That night, after Noah fell asleep, I sat by the window, staring at the moon casting its silver glow across the quiet street. I thought of Emily, how she had left too soon, how she would have wanted her son and grandson to find light again. "We're okay now," I whispered into the still night. "He's safe. They're safe." The moon shone brighter, as if answering me, as if Emily herself was listening from somewhere beyond. Our family had been through darkness, betrayal, loss, but somehow, through courage and love, we had found our way back to the light. Life after Claire's departure wasn't simple. Evil doesn't vanish cleanly. It leaves scars, shadows that linger, even when the person is gone. For weeks, our household felt as though it was holding its breath, waiting for something else to strike. Noah would glance nervously at doors, asking before bedtime, "She can't come back, right, Grandpa? You promise?" And every time I would kneel down, look him straight in the eyes and say, "She's gone, son. Forever. I swear it." But deep down, I knew promises like that carry a weight no man can fully guarantee. Daniel was the one who bore the heaviest burden. My son had always been strong on the outside, ambitious, responsible, the kind of man who could charm a boardroom and still find time to fix a neighbor's broken fence. But now he walked like a man hollowed out. He blamed himself for letting Claire into our lives, for being blinded by loneliness and charm. I watched him in the evenings, sitting alone at the kitchen table, staring into his untouched glass of bourbon. His eyes carried the kind of pain only a betrayed man knows, the shame of trusting someone who didn't deserve it. One night, I sat across from him, the silence between us thick. Finally, I spoke. "Son, guilt is a heavy coat. If you wear it too long, it'll bury you." Daniel looked up, his voice rough. "Dad, she almost killed him, my boy. And I let her in. How can I forgive myself?" I leaned forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "By remembering who stopped her. You, me, Sarah. We saw it before it was too late. You may feel like you failed, but you didn't. Noah's alive. That's what matters." He didn't answer, but his shoulders sagged, and I knew he had heard me. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to be the glue that held us together. She carried Noah through the storm with patience that reminded me so much of Emily it hurt. When he refused to eat anything at family gatherings, terrified that someone had tampered with his plate, Sarah would calmly prepare meals from home, setting them in front of him with a smile. "See, love, I made this myself, safe and sound." He trusted her. Slowly, bite by bite, Noah began to eat again without fear. She also taught him small ways to feel brave. "Fear is like a shadow," she told him once, while helping him draw in his notebook. "It looks bigger than it is, but if you shine a light on it, it disappears." Noah's eyes lit up at her words. From then on, he started keeping a little flashlight under his pillow, convinced that as long as he could shine it, no darkness could hurt him. I often caught myself watching them, Sarah with Noah, her laugh gentle, her patience endless, and I would think, this is what family is supposed to be. Not grand gestures, not perfect photographs, but quiet moments of safety. Months passed. Slowly, life found its rhythm again. Birthdays came and went. At Noah's 8th, Sarah baked a chocolate cake from scratch. When she set it on the table, candles glowing, Noah's face lit up brighter than the flames. He blew them out and hugged her so tightly that she nearly dropped the cake knife. "I wish you were my mum," he whispered into her shoulder. Sarah's eyes glistened, though she tried to hide it behind a laugh. Daniel saw it too. He was quiet, thoughtful, his gaze lingering on Sarah longer than before. I could see the battle inside him, part of him afraid to trust again, part of him recognizing the truth already standing before him. It all came to a head one Sunday evening. The three of us sat in the living room while Noah built a tower of blocks on the rug. Daniel turned to me suddenly, his voice low but steady. "Dad, I can't keep ignoring it. Sarah, she's been more of a mother to Noah than anyone since Emily. She's been more of a partner to me than I ever admitted. I was blind before. I don't want to be blind again." I studied my son's face. There was pain there, yes, but also resolve, the kind of resolve that only comes when a man has been broken and is ready to rebuild. "Then don't be," I told him. "Life doesn't hand out second chances often. Don't waste this one." Weeks later, Daniel finally spoke to Sarah. I wasn't there for the words themselves, I only saw the aftermath. Sarah, cheeks flushed, tears streaming, standing in the kitchen with Daniel, holding her hand as though it was the most fragile, precious thing in the world. And I knew. The walls that had separated us from peace were finally crumbling. But peace doesn't erase memory. Claire's betrayal still haunted me at night. Sometimes, when the house was quiet, I would sit at the dining table with the folded note in my hands, staring at the ugly scrawl of words that nearly cost us everything. I kept it, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. Evil often hides behind smiles, and vigilance is the price of love. Still, as I looked at Sarah and Daniel, as I listened to Noah's laughter echo through the halls, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that our family could heal, that love could outlast even the deepest wounds. That night, standing on the porch, with the cool breeze brushing my face, I whispered into the dark, "We made it, Emily. Your boy is safe, and he's loved." The wind rustled the trees, and in that quiet moment, I let myself believe she was listening. By the time spring unfolded its gentle warmth, our home had begun to breathe again. The winter of betrayal had left its scars, but slowly, life was stretching out its arms, like the branches of our old oak tree in the backyard, determined to reach for light. For months after the wedding disaster, I had wondered whether we would ever feel normal again. Yet as the days lengthened and the air softened, I began to hear a sound that had been missing for far too long, Noah's laughter. It came like the first song of a bird after a storm, fragile but clear, and every time it rang through the house, I felt something mend inside me. Noah was changing. At first, he had been jumpy, afraid to eat anything not made by Sarah, afraid to sit at a table where strangers handled the plates. He would ask me again and again, "She can't come back, right, Grandpa, you promise?" And each time I would kneel down, take his small shoulders in my hands, and swear to him that Claire was gone forever. I don't know if children can tell when adults are lying, but I do know they can sense when we doubt ourselves. So I made sure my voice carried no hesitation, even if deep down I knew that no man can ever promise perfect safety. What I could promise was this, that I would protect him with every breath I had left. Sarah was the one who helped him believe it. She seemed to understand Noah in a way that only someone who had walked through shadows could. She started small, packing his lunches with handwritten notes, drawing silly faces or tiny superheroes in bright crayons. "See, love," she would say as she tucked the lunchbox into his backpack. "This food is from me, only me, safe as can be." Noah would peek inside, see the note, and smile. That smile became his first step back into the world. At night, when nightmares dragged him awake, Sarah would sit beside his bed, her voice steady and calm. "Fear is just a shadow, Noah," she told him once, stroking his hair. "It looks big, but it can't hurt you. All you need is light." From then on, Noah kept a little flashlight under his pillow, flicking it on whenever the dark felt too heavy. I would see the soft beam glowing through the crack of his door, and though it hurt me to know my grandson still carried fear, I was grateful he had found a way to fight it. Daniel was healing too, though his battle was quieter. My son carried guilt like a man chained to his own shadow. He blamed himself for Claire, for not seeing through her lies, for nearly letting his own child slip through his fingers. Many nights, I found him sitting alone at the kitchen table, a glass of bourbon untouched in front of him. His eyes would be distant, fixed on nothing, as though he was replaying every choice that led him to that wedding. Sometimes he spoke, his voice low, almost ashamed. "Dad, how could I have been so blind?" And every time I told him the truth, that love makes fools of us all, but what matters is who stands and fights when the truth is revealed. The turning point came one quiet Saturday morning. I walked into the kitchen to find Sarah flipping pancakes, while Noah sat on the counter, swinging his legs and telling her about a story he was writing in school. Daniel stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching them. There was something in his gaze, something soft, reverent, almost fearful. For the first time, I saw the wall of guilt begin to crack. He wasn't just looking at Sarah as the woman who saved his son. He was looking at her as if she was the answer to a question he had been too afraid to ask. Later that day, Daniel asked me to join him on the porch. The air smelled of fresh grass, and the world felt quiet in that way, only spring mornings do. He cleared his throat, his voice rough. "Dad, I don't know what I'd do without her. Sarah. She's been more of a mother to Noah than anyone since Emily, and she's been more of a partner to me than I ever admitted." I studied him for a long moment. He was my boy, but he was also a man carrying wounds deeper than most could bear. "Then don't lose her," I said simply. "Sometimes the best advice is the shortest." Weeks later, Daniel finally spoke his heart to Sarah. I wasn't there to hear the words, but when I saw them afterward, the truth was written all over their faces. Sarah's cheeks flushed, her eyes wet with tears, but her smile was radiant. Daniel held her hand with the kind of grip that says, "I've lost too much to ever let go again." Noah, of course, was the one who voiced what the rest of us already felt. One evening at dinner, Sarah set a plate of pasta in front of him, and he looked up with wide, earnest eyes. "Daddy, can Sarah be my mummy now?" The room fell silent. Sarah's lips parted, her breath caught, and Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. My chest tightened with emotion. Daniel leaned down, his voice cracking. "If that's what you want, buddy, then yes." "Oh, Fom." Noah grinned and threw his arms around Sarah's waist. "Good, because I already love her like a mummy." Sarah broke down then, hugging him tightly, whispering through tears, "I love you too, sweetheart." From that night on, something shifted permanently. The ghost of Claire lost its grip on us. The ache of Emily's absence remained, but it was no longer an open wound. It had become a memory, tender, painful, but honored. Life moved forward in small, meaningful ways. Every Friday night, we began having family dinners. Sarah cooked, Daniel set the table, Noah arranged silverware with meticulous care. I watched them, heart full. knowing that the pieces of our broken family had been rearranged into something new, something strong. But healing is never without its shadows. One afternoon, Noah came home from school, pale and shaken. A classmate had brought shrimp crackers in his lunch, and the teacher had to remove them from the table. Noah clung to Sarah, trembling, whispering, "What if someone tries again?" Sarah knelt down, holding his face in her hands. "Listen to me, love. That was an accident. And even if the world tries to scare you, we'll always be here to keep you safe." I watched the fear slowly melt from his eyes, replaced by trust. That trust wasn't in the world, it was in us, in the family that had stood between him and darkness. As for me, I found myself reflecting more and more on what family truly means. Blood alone doesn't hold people together, love does. Loyalty does. Courage does. Sarah wasn't born into our family, but she became its very heartbeat. Daniel wasn't just my son anymore. He was a man who had fallen, learned, and chosen to rise again. And Noah was our light, the small flame we all protected with everything we had. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in streaks of orange and violet, I sat on the porch with Noah curled against me. His toy truck rested on his lap, his eyes drooping as sleep pulled at him. I whispered softly, almost to myself, "You're safe now, boy, you're safe." And for the first time in years, I believed it. When I look back now, I see that the story wasn't just about betrayal or danger. It was about resilience. It was about how love can be scarred, but not destroyed. I thought the wedding had marked the end of my family, that the weight of lies and cruelty had cracked us beyond repair. But what I learned is that families aren't measured by what tries to break them. They're measured by how they rise again. I tell you this, not as a man who's perfect, but as a father and a grandfather who nearly lost everything. There will always be people who smile while hiding knives. There will always be storms that tear through our homes. But the lesson I carry now is simple. Shadows only grow where light is absent. When you stand in love, real love, selfless love, you become the light that shadows cannot survive. Daniel found that light again in Sarah. Noah found safety in the arms that never let go. And I found peace in knowing that even though the world can be cruel, it can also heal. We will always miss Emily, but her spirit lives on in every laugh Noah gives, in every meal Sarah cooks, in every quiet moment when Daniel looks at his son with pride instead of guilt. So if you're listening, and you carry wounds of your own betrayals, losses, disappointments, let this be your reminder. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not defined by the ones who tried to harm you. You are defined by the love that still beats in your chest, the people who stand beside you when the lights go out. My grandson once asked me if his mother could see him from heaven. I told him yes, and I believe it with all my heart. But I also believe she sees all of us. She sees how we fought for each other, how we rebuilt when the foundation crumbled, and I hope she smiles knowing that her boy is safe, loved, and surrounded by light. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of the strength within your own family, I ask only this. Carry that light forward. Protect the ones you love. Cherish the small laughter, the quiet moments, the ordinary mornings that make life extraordinary. And if you found meaning here, I hope you'll stay with us, because there are more stories, more lessons, more journeys to share together. Love is the only thing that turns survival into healing, and healing is what makes us whole again.